started. So today, the topic is breaking free from Airbnb, how to build a direct bookings business from the ground up. And I'm joined by Gil Chan of CraftedStays, who has an incredible website building tool for short-term rental operators. And we're going to cover all the ins and outs of how to create a compelling website for direct bookings that is easy to use and converts lookers into bookers.
I like that.
The agenda today, we'll do a quick intro of myself and CraftedStays, uh, why direct bookings matter, how to choose a PMS, knowing your guest avatar, how to start collecting guest data, how to create your direct booking website, and then how to go about marketing it. So really everything you need to know from launching your first website to then how to drive folks to that website to start actually getting bookings. So this is going to be a great webinar if you are interested in starting direct bookings or are looking to optimize your direct booking process. I think this will also be very valuable if right now you're using one of the direct booking websites offered from your property management software, so their own tool. A tool like CraftedStays is going to make a website that's a lot more powerful and user-friendly and trackable. So if you also are looking to upgrade your direct booking website, you're going to get a lot of value from this presentation. To start with, a little background on StayFi if you're not familiar. StayFi is a tool that both helps you collect more guest data and then also help you market to those guests who have stayed with you to get them to come back and book again with you directly, so that you can not only reduce your dependence on OTAs like Airbnb and Vrbo, but also just have this incredible new list of high value contacts that you can market to increase your overall occupancy and revenue. We have a few different solutions in StayFi. The first is we use the Wi-Fi to help you collect data not just from the booker, but everybody staying in the vacation rental through a process just like you would have seen at a coffee shop or an airport or a hotel, where every single guest to get on the Wi-Fi has to go through a splash page with your branding on it and provide their name, email, and phone number to get online. Then within StayFi, we also have all the tools you need to then reach out to those guests or any other guest data that you have with email and text marketing, so that you can get them to come back and book with you again and again. And then within StayFi, we also have some fantastic guest engagement tools that can help you generate revenue other ways. That's through things like upsells, selling tours and activities. And we have a product called Homepage, which is like a link tree for each one of your listings that we funnel all your guests through when they log into the Wi-Fi, and that we can also help you remarket through marketing. And on there, we have all a range of built-in upsell partners that can help you generate thousands of dollars more a month across all of your rentals. And then finally, with our Wi-Fi tool, we also have some very cool Wi-Fi monitoring capabilities, which will let you know if there's any issues with Wi-Fi across any of your vacation rentals, as well as let you know if any of your rentals have too many guests in them, as we also can measure occupancy. Now I'll hand it over and we can get an intro on CraftedStays.
Yeah. So, Arthur, thanks for having me here. I'm Gil. I'm the founder of CraftedStays. CraftedStays is a direct booking site creator. I think it's kind of first of the industry for right now. But what we really focus on is really lowering the barrier to entry for folks getting into direct bookings. So a lot of our folks, we get our sites set up in minutes. So you don't have to hire a developer, spend thousands of dollars and have them set up a site with you for a couple months. It takes really as little as 15 minutes to get your site set up. The way we do that is really we provide you a library of growing templates on our platform that allows you to pick the branding type that kind of resonates with you, and can apply that towards your site, and you can customize it however you want. And our sites are really focused around conversion. So that's the one metric that we look at pretty closely. It's how we think about all of our testing, all of our widgets, our navigations, really making sure that all of our sites are well performing, and it's deeply connected back into your PMS. So as you make changes to your listing on your PMS, it'll update also within your website as well too. And oftentimes it will be synced within a few minutes. So that means that your availabilities, your property information, your pictures all stay in sync with your PMS.
And we'll go into plenty of details about how all of these things work. So I'm really excited about that. First, I'd love to get your perspective on this as well, Gil. But why do direct bookings matter? Uh, there's a ton of reasons why direct bookings are important for short-term rental operators. Number one is that they're just more profitable because OTAs obviously take a pretty significant percentage of the revenue, whether that's you paying it or the guest paying it. At the end of the day, it could be 15+% of the total booking. Also, you are subject to all the whims of Airbnb or Vrbo when it comes to their policies around cancellation. Obviously, they can do arbitrary things, and so the more dependent you are on them, the chances are higher for something they do to disrupt your business. Then obviously when your bookings are flowing through OTAs, it's hard to get access to get guest data. It's hard to remarket to guests, and we obviously have solutions that can help with that. And then finally, you are in a very competitive marketplace with a lot of other uh, potential entrants. And so, also they have pretty interesting algorithms that could change at any time in terms of how they rank properties. So by developing a loyal audience of people that love staying with you and your brand, that's really where StayFi can come in and reduce that dependence over time. So maybe this year you're getting 10% of your bookings direct. If you invest in strategies like StayFi or CraftedStays, we can increase that direct booking percentage from 10 to 20 to 30 over the course of the next few years, where really the OTAs just become a way to fill those extra nights. And for many customers, after several years of applying serious effort into direct bookings, that becomes actually the primary channel they're driving bookings through. Any thoughts here, Gil, about kind of like why you kind of want to get into this space and help folks achieve a higher percentage of overall bookings directly?
Yeah, I think the one thing I think about is that on the major platforms, the OTAs, you're basically trying to get the next transaction there. You're trying to get that next booking, and it's very transactional. You're thinking about optimizing your rates. But when you start to invest into your direct bookings, you're starting to build a real business where you have control over your marketing. And unlike being on the OTAs, it's not transactional, it's actually compounds. So the more efforts that you put into getting guests that stay with you, you're collecting their email, you're building up your email list, you're starting to have site authority, starting to optimize your SEO, your website conversion, it starts to compound over time. And like Arthur says, you may start off with 10, 15% the first year of direct, but those second, third, fourth years is really starts to compound where it becomes a living beast of its own and you're not reliant on the OTAs.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are not aware that, when we work with large property managers that have been in short-term or vacation rentals for 10 plus years, they are typically at 60, 70, 80% direct. So all the things you talk about here is just how do we accelerate you along that path to build that loyal audience? Obviously, they were marketing at a time before Airbnb and Vrbo even existed. So business started out as direct and OTAs were added later. So everything here is just kind of like how do we accelerate that process so over time you build an independent business that's more profitable and drives higher occupancy and higher rates at the end of the day. This one, if you are starting out as a vacation rental operator, the first piece of software that you purchase is typically a property management software, of which there are many, many options out there in the marketplace. I think what's interesting, and when I talk to folks, is they assess a lot of these different benefits, but the one thing they don't typically look at is the direct booking site. I feel like that's typically an afterthought in terms of all the other things. So, when you work with folks, kind of what do you think they typically are most interested in from the PMS, and why do you think some things like direct booking are kind of an afterthought in those circumstances?
Yeah, I think the first thing is I think the major reason why PMSs or the job that you actually hire them to do is help you automate a lot of your business so that it becomes a lot more passive. And we talk about this quite a bit in the short-term rental industry. It's not as passive as a lot of folks may make it look or seem, but the PMSs really help you automate a lot of lines of your business, guest messaging, syncing rates across different platforms. So all the operational stuff. And over the last, I would say 2, 3, maybe even 4 years, the PMS has realized that direct bookings is a meaningful thing that guests and hosts are looking for. And they've started to invest into it, but it's still to this day a very small portion of the team. A lot of times maybe 5% of the team within the PMSs are focused on direct, some even less than that. It's really, they add on that service because it's somewhat expected of a PMS now. And that's kind of why we get a lot of referrals from PMSs, because they know that their site can help you launch your first direct booking site. But as you mature, as you're looking to drive more traffic and convert more users, that's when they start looking towards a service like us.
Yeah, and I'd say the kind of the thing you have to realize about the property management software is their most important relationships as a business are with Airbnb, Expedia, and Booking.com. So for them, there's always a bit of a tension of, they need to maintain, those integrations. There are their most important partners. So, from my perspective, while they want to help you get direct bookings, they can never like fully dedicate themselves to that purpose because the OTAs in their world are always going to come first. Um, yeah, and then obviously once you have a PMS, then the question is how are you going to go about actually developing a website and driving bookings to it? I guess first thing I'll hand over to Gil is kind of like how do you approach kind of maybe if you don't have even a brand, how do you go about creating those kind of like first assets of like logo, how you want to position yourself, and then kind of how does the website follow that?
Yeah, yeah. So this is kind of like the framework that we think about as we kind of guide our customers through getting into direct bookings. And it's really around these four parts. We call it the quadrant. But really it's first building out your brand. And branding is goes beyond logos, color, and so on. But it's really knowing your guest. Two is then really starting to collect guest data so that you can market towards them. And then three is then building a conversion focused website. You don't want just any website. You want really one that is there to drive visitors into actual guests of yours. And four is then to how do you market them effectively over time? So that's kind of how we think about it. And we'll kind of go into each one of these steps in much greater detail.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so branding, we work with so many different brands at StayFi, and my kind of general take on this, and I'd love to hear what you think, is at least from how you position yourself and understanding your guest, I feel like when you are a smaller operator and you're run as, maybe as an individual or a couple or as a family, I find the brands that kind of lean into the host personality of the business are more successful. And as people grow, and maybe if they manage hundreds of properties, that's where maybe you see more of like a corporate feel. But kind of curious, kind of like what you see and how people go about identifying who their audience is and what's going to appeal to them.
Yeah, I think of those as two separate things, but you're absolutely right. When
Mhm.
you're a smaller operator, folks that book with you actually do want to book with a small, like a host. But as you grow, they have certain expectations that they have for you and certain ways that they may want to communicate. And that's also even reflected in our templates. We have a lot of templates are geared towards folks that may have sub 12 properties. And then we have another set of templates that are from 12 to 20, 12 to 50 even. And then templates that are even above that. Each one of them has a different flavor and a different way that you want to approach things. So for example, on all of our templates that are really geared towards smaller operators, we have a section on the very bottom of the page, which is your host. And really, it's there to help empathize and help create a relationship with that potential guest and yourself. And we include this in all of our templates. In some of the more higher end, bigger portfolios, we actually don't include that section in there. So there is a difference of how you actually speak to your customers based on kind of who you're targeting, what they're expecting, and your portfolio size there. But thinking about I think before you really start to get into direct bookings, you really need to know who your target audience really is. And that's where I kind of think about branding is really that first step there. And what you want to do is really, you probably do this already, but when you're designing your place, you have an idea of who's staying at your place, what type of amenities you are, and you want to make sure that you're carrying this through in every other branding asset, every other marketing that you're doing as well too. That includes the email copy that you might be having on your emails. It includes the copy that you have on your website, your social media as well too. You really want to understand what the demographics is, what age, what income, what family status they have, what are their preferences, where are they booking, where are they looking, where are they spending their times, and what are their booking habits? Are they seasonal? Are they only going to a place for events? And what you really want to do is really get a good understanding about this so that you know how to market them, how to get in front of them, how to write copy that resonates with them. I found that there are not two secret ingredients, but for folks that really want to resonate, it's really one, making sure that they know who they're trying to target and they niching that down as much as possible. And then two is really applying that consistency over time so that no matter where they see you, they have that same brand awareness there.
And how do you find, or is there a good way to have this kind of personality, brand, copy reflected both on the OTA listings and your own website? Do you find like it's important to be consistent between those two channels?
Yeah, it's definitely much more important on your direct booking site. On your Airbnb or your OTAs listings, it's a little less important. But if, for instance, for us, a lot of our properties are family-friendly stays. And both on our direct site and on the OTAs, we want to make sure that we're including the picture of the pack and play, the picture of the high chair. We're including that into the listing descriptions as well too, to really make sure that if we have a mother that's traveling with young kids, they know that our stay is made for them. And we put it prominently on our website, but we also have it on the OTAs.
Awesome. Yeah, and then when it comes to collecting guest data, I think one of the insights behind StayFi was that when you're going out to start to drive direct bookings for the first time, the easiest pool of people to go after are people that have already stayed with you and love the properties. This is for like a few reasons. One, from like a marketing standpoint, right? To go out and pay for search ads or Facebook ads, right? It's very hard to target the right audience of people that may want to travel to your destination or in market to travel your destination, which would be more like search ads. And then when you're doing search ads, it's so competitive against sophisticated players like OTAs or very large property managers that it's very hard to compete against them and produce results that are competitive with what they can deliver. So the idea behind StayFi is, we want to go after the lowest hanging fruit, and those are the folks that are already staying in your property. And we kind of identify 4 places where you can go about and start collecting this data. Number one is within StayFi, we have email marketing and text marketing. For email marketing, at least, when you connect to your property management software, we actually go through all of your bookings historically, as well as future ones, and we identify if you have any real emails that you've already collected from past guests to come in, and we add those to your database. So when you set up StayFi email, we'll go and uncover if you have any marketing data to begin with already lodged away in your software. And of course, you can upload data from any other source you've collected. And then obviously Wi-Fi is the main touch point where we collect the vast majority of data. And that would be, when the guest logs into the Wi-Fi, we're going to collect their information. The third one is not really from bookers, but it's from people who are interested in your listings and are on your website. And through StayFi, you can create forms. You can also have like a pop-up on a website. I'm sure Gil can talk about, if he has certain form products, then you can also connect those to our email service in StayFi so that you can collect emails from your website. And then finally, social media is one where we see people do very interesting things when it comes to data collection. So, with maybe on an Instagram story, say that, hey, we had a cancellation, like enter your email if you're interested in getting like a special code to come stay in Joshua Tree next weekend. Things like that, where I've seen some very smart techniques to collect some emails through social media. Oh, that's definitely kind of the least utilized of these 4 here. Anything you want to add here?
Yeah, on the website side of things of collecting emails, there's like 2 ways that you can have it. One is you can actually embed a form on the pages themselves. Usually, you'll want to give them some type of carrot, some reason to actually want to leave their email behind. So typically, it's enter to get a free stay or be on our list for any promotional discounts. Usually those are the two tactics that I see. And you can embed them on a page themselves on the bottom of your homepage, or you can actually have it as a pop-up. And for us, we support both sides of it. And honestly, like even if you don't create your site, if you're creating it on any other big platform there, they'll have the ability to allow embedded forms. Most of the OTA websites, sorry, not OTA, PMS websites don't allow you to have embedded forms on there, with some exceptions, but it's the norm of not having it, more than having it.
Yeah, we found that some of them, because within StayFi, you can like copy and paste code in the header of the website to do like a pop-up. Some of them will let you do that and they have to like do it for you, some won't. So again, it's like a totally mixed bag, but typically they're not very configurable or customizable, especially from like a DIY standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah, we see.
Yeah, here's just a view, just so people can see here if they're not familiar. This is what the guest experience looks like from the Wi-Fi marketing standpoint. So guest selects the guest network in the property. This splash page launches obviously with the logo and copy for that property or that brand that you want to have here. Then we take guests to this thing called the homepage in StayFi, which is essentially a directory of all of the valuable links in the property. So things like a guidebook, book this property again, our upsell partners, which could be late checkout to booking tours and activities through Viator and getting a rev share. There's a total many options there. And then finally, what's very cool is through our email and text product, you can automatically then send a welcome email upon Wi-Fi login. So you can imagine guest logs into Wi-Fi, then we can trigger a text and or an email from StayFi, obviously from your brand, to those guests. And that's really a way to introduce you, your brand, your offerings, a link to the homepage for this property, to not just the booker, but all the guests that are staying there, and really start to, what I find, build that multiple brand impressions and also tell the guests a story, because the main carrot people use, at least for direct bookings, is that the guest will save money by booking direct over an OTA. Just generally true for most people and how they set up their pricing and distribution. So really just kind of reminding folks at multiple touch points in this journey that they will get a better rate for a future stay by booking direct, which is like the first message you can see here in this email, as opposed to going through the OTA, because it's going to take several impressions in front of the guest for them to fully understand. Typically, especially if they're an Airbnb guest, that you're an independent operator, direct booking is not only an option, but it's a better option for both sides, where they could potentially save money off their next stay. And of course, they already trust you as an operator, because if they're having a great stay, they're definitely going to come back to you if they're interested. Here's a little bit more on the homepage if you were curious. So this is what guests are seeing again after they log into the Wi-Fi, and also something that we can trigger to them via email and text through StayFi's tools. Like I said before, you can share important links like guidebook, book this property again, which is a great one because they can go right to that listing and see the direct booking price. And then finally, we have two upsell partners that are built in, the Hostco and Viator. Hostco is for your own services. So that would be things like if you want to offer early check-in, late checkout, mid-stay cleans, rental items, physical goods to purchase, and then Viator, which is the largest tour and activity network in the world, where you earn an 8% commission off any bookings through that link within 30 days. And you can also send this homepage prior to the stay through StayFi to just the booker. So that's really important if you are selling things like early check-in. That also starts to establish that brand awareness, because if you send this link to the booker in advance, they'll click on the link through the messaging and they get taken to a branded page where it's, your branding. And again, you can start building up an understanding with guests that you're not a quote unquote Airbnb, that you're an independent operator, and that developing a relationship with you for future stays is going to be the best way to plan future travel.
Yeah, and as you're thinking about your website, then you've started to collect emails from your past guests. Naturally, the place that you want to point them towards is your direct booking site there. And for us, we think about there's three different components to it, and we'll kind of break it out in each different slide there. But the first one is really around performance there. You want to make sure that your site is well performant. It loads really fast. You're optimizing your images. So, for example, one of the things that we do now is when we pull the images directly from the PMSs, we will actually convert them 4 times over. And depending on what type of device someone is coming from, we'll serve them a different image size. And we learned this through a lot of trial and error. We originally pulled all the images, put them on the website, and we found that the sites load really slow on mobile. So we ended up optimizing it where we have 4 different sizes, 2 for desktop, 1 for tablet, and 1 for mobile. So it looks really, really good on a desktop with a larger display, but it also loads really fast on mobile. It still looks really good because you only have so many pixels on a mobile device compared to a large computer monitor. But you want to make sure that your site loads fast. This is really important, not only for the guest experience, but also for SEO as well too. When Google is crawling your webpage, they're looking at how fast your load times are. So you want to make sure that it loads really fast, and that will help you on SEO. You also want to make it very responsive. And when we say responsive, what we mean is you want it to perform and navigate really well on whatever device they're coming in from. So example is in the little image there, you see it looks different based on a desktop versus a mobile. On a desktop, we will actually show for the search bar, for instance, the actual check-in, check-out dates, the drop-down menus. But however, on mobile, it really clutters the display and it doesn't allow you to get your brand across. So we actually have a button that brings up a drawer that comes up, and we end up trialing different types of navigations to really land on the one that converts the most, the one that drives people towards that booking page as much as possible. So on our side, we think about these small little navigation tweaks, both on desktop and mobile and tablet as well too. But these little small things really help you boost your conversion.
And how do you find what is kind of like the general breakdown of desktop versus mobile bookings? Are most majority of bookings now coming through a mobile device, or are people still exploring on mobile and maybe making the final transaction on a desktop?
Desktop definitely has a higher conversion rate. So you'll see
Yep.
a lot of bookers actually do convert on desktop, but a lot of times they'll first see it on mobile. I think the breakdown is like 40%, 46% of traffic is coming from mobile. And that's why we spend so much effort in making sure that we drive them towards the end of the conversion funnel as much as possible. So that like we can really make sure that we're capturing that big share of devices are visiting your webpage.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
and
feel like those are those extra touches that, as much as they may try, those are those extra thoughtful things that the property management software websites are probably not going to be focused their time to optimize all these little areas to improve the website conversion and performance, right?
we obsess over a lot of these different things, and we do a lot
Yeah.
of testing. And the great thing for us is that these templates are shared between so many different hosts out there. So we often have lots and lots of people using these templates, and we can play around and we can do trials with some of our hosts, and we'll learn certain things about the behavior, about traffic conversion. And if it works out really well, we'll end up making that change for everybody's website. So it's not like you're paying a developer once to create your site and kind of leaving it there. What we're doing on the behind the scenes is continually thinking about how do we boost that conversion. The way that I think about it is you have these big hotel chains and big property managers that have big marketing teams that are constantly doing their own tests and their own trials. How do we bring it so that every operator has those tools in their tool belt? And kind of like the example you see here, the kind of the next thing is really around like experience there. So when someone's visiting your homepage, how do you make it so that they have a really good booking experience there? So like I said earlier, you want to make it a very seamless navigation. On mobile, if you look at the image there, that's the homepage that it lands into. And as you scroll up on that page, we actually pin the search bar on the top of it. So if they're down on the bottom of the page, they start to see your host information, they see your value props. And if they're ready to book, we want to make sure that that button is always there. So that's a change that we've learned, and we tested out, and it ended up resulting in a much higher conversion rate or click-through rate, actually. So we made the change for everybody there. Another thing that you want to do, even if you're building your own site, is make sure that there's a clear call to action on the very top of the page. You don't want to make it seem like you have a home page that's just to see and browse your properties. You want them to know that this site is there to help them book. So a book now button, even if it's a static button on the top of the page, make sure you have that what we call above the fold before they have to scroll.
And yeah, and what I think people find so frustrating sometimes with some of the PMS websites is they may have a good marketing website, but they're always having to link into like a separate booking engine on a separate like URL to actually like search the homes and do the booking. So there's like a big disconnect from the maybe those extra things they want to communicate to guests that they can't do in the framework of the PMS website, and then they end up with kind of like two sites, the actual marketing site and then a booking engine that's like a separate landing page people are being redirected to.
I see that quite often. I'll find that a lot of folks will create a Squarespace and Wix site because it's easy to use and easy to build, and it looks really good. And that gives them the ability to talk about their co-hosting services, the things to do in the area, and help drive like some of that organic traffic as well too. And because it's not integrated, they'll often have that book now button actually linked to their actual property pages on whatever PMS booking site they have. And we're now starting to see a lot of folks with those dual websites transition towards an integrated website. So it's cohesive, but also it allows you to have much more traceability.
Totally.
You're not having, you're now able to follow that journey all the way through to know what source they came in. Did they come in from social media? Did they come in from your emails? And see if they actually made it to the booking pages. So it gives you a much better idea of your actual marketing tactics and what's working in that.
And I find the other great thing here is a lot of people, maybe price is not how you want to differentiate from OTAs. Maybe you do want to keep those prices much closer and actually just have your direct bookings be a much higher margin for yourself and maybe your owners. I find that the struggle on OTAs is you cannot fully articulate maybe the unique service offerings that go above and beyond what someone expects with a standard Airbnb, whether that's concierge services, planning additional, outside experiences for guests, all those types of things of maybe you get to include, I see people that even do like you get, free golf rounds or free tickets or experiences when you book direct. And you have all these places where you can kind of articulate the full benefits of your brand that go beyond what you can articulate in an Airbnb listing, right?
That's absolutely right. And you'll see this a lot in unique stays, luxury stays, or ones that you have control over the amenities and you're providing a bit more than just the stay itself. Those are, and even business stays as well too. A lot of business stays, you'll get to talk about how your desk setup is. Do you provide a monitor? Some of those things that you really can't portray outside of an image and the copy on your Airbnb or VRBO listings. So it allows you to tell a much more cohesive story.
Yeah, it's really where you kind of unify that audience persona with the story the website's telling, right? Because that can never be fully articulated on an OTA listing, maybe especially if it's that niche of a group of people that you're trying to appeal to.
Exactly. And the better that you can niche down, the better that you can resonate with and target really the right folks there. And then kind of the last bit of it is really making sure that your site functions really well. And what you want to make sure is that people are able to find the properties that they're looking for. And also that the search engines are able to match your website with people who are looking for it. So for example, we actually try not to use the widgets coming from the PMSs as much as possible. We build everything kind of in-house as much as possible. And that allows us to have a different search navigation, like we saw earlier, that allows us to display the properties in a different way. And what we're trying to do here is provide them with enough information in the right context to drive them towards that booking page. So as you're building out your website, think about what are people clicking through, why it's important to put in there. You don't want a really long homepage. You want one that's functional to drive them towards that booking page. And then kind of the last thing there is really making sure that your site is then optimized for the search engines. So we do a lot of work behind the scenes. CraftedStays is actually a Google for Startups partner. So Google actually invests quite a bit into us. They provide a lot of infrastructure, but also a lot of training as well too. So we get to sit down with the search teams, and they advise us on how to build our pages structurally so that they rank higher within the SEOs. So they're telling us to, one, for instance, make sure that there's an H1 tag on the page so that the crawler knows what the purpose of the page is. Make sure that all subparts have an H2, and really structure the pages so that when we're building out our templates, it's optimized for the search engines. And then outside of that, really making sure that the performance, the load times are decreased as much as possible to help raise in search ranks as well too. And then further down the road, one of the things that we're trying to do is also introduce our blog for even greater kind of SEO there. And kind of like how we approach, and you probably heard a little bit about this, but how we approach direct bookings is a little bit different than the industry. We're not a design shop. We try to make it so that you have the tools there readily available for you. So we're integrated with all the PMSs, all the property availability rates and fees are all synchronized with it. So it's all embedded in there. We try to provide you with a set of really beautiful templates so that you can really build it without having to have a designer there or have a lot of design experience to really come up with a really beautiful site. And we are hyper focused on conversion. We're constantly thinking about what the booking flows are for all of our different templates and how do we optimize that.
And I take it someone could go to CraftedStays and see some of these templates and like poke around on different examples, right?
Yeah. So on our homepage, we have a couple of our examples on there where we've actually added a few in the last few weeks. We're actually adding another one in another week or so that we need to update our homepage on. So the homepage has a few, it doesn't have all of them. I think right now we'll probably have 5 within the next week or so. And then we have like 2 or 3 that's in the backlog. We constantly work with us also a much larger hosts recently that have 80 plus properties and they have a certain look and feel. And so we'll actually go through the design process with them and create a brand new template. And when we do that, it's available for that client, but it's also available to the wider platform as well too. And we encourage that because we want everybody to be using these templates, providing feedback, and the more data points we have, the better we can refine these templates over time and do a lot of iterative testing on it. Yeah, so basically what we do is, one, you connect your PMS, we pull in all the property information, you choose the different template that you want to use, and then you customize your site. And then from there, you basically provide your custom domain, and we're able to launch your site in as quick as 15 minutes. Typically, it takes anywhere from 1 to 3 hours for someone to launch a site.
And I guess the kind of like requirements is typically someone would have to go and purchase a domain outside of you guys to then have that be what they use for the site.
Yeah, for the most part. We have some folks that don't have a domain and they'll use the subdomain that we have. So it would be like explorestaytoday.craftedstays.co. But typically you want your own domain. It'll definitely help you out in site authority within the search engines. But it really, like, that's probably not, we've had a lot of folks that decide on their domain after they signed up with us. The hard thing that you do need is a PMS.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. And definitely recommend, as we talk about email marketing, you really do need a domain to do email marketing, especially now, to have it be effectively delivered. So that is actually one thing we actually now require with StayFi is that you do have a domain to do email marketing. But yeah, I mean, once you have a great website, there's just a few, types of campaigns that we recommend at StayFi, and I'll talk a little bit about those. Is number one, obviously, you need to identify what an email marketing tool you want to use. I think one times people don't really understand is where does the PMS messaging end and where does like a true email marketing tool begin? The PMS is definitely where you want to do your transactional messaging with the booker before, during, and sometimes for a limited window after the stay. But for instance, if you're messaging through Airbnb, at a certain point, you can no longer message folks through that channel and you lose the ability to stay in contact with them So you're going to have to use a different service to do that robust post-stay marketing, to keep the relationship going with these guests and then have them rebook with you. I think it's important to understand, when you're starting emails, kind of what are your top goals or priorities. And a lot of that's going to have to do with the market you serve, how your occupancy looks over the course of the year, and then what kind of like additional benefits or programs may you want your guests to enroll in. Some examples of that is, depending on the destination, you may have extremely robust bookings through peak times of the year, and then you have times of the year where occupancy is significantly lower and it's hard to book fully out through the OTAs. Then you may really focus your email marketing towards filling or encouraging guests or educating them about reasons to come back to the destination during the times of the year that maybe you're not that busy. Another great thing is maybe people are very focused on last minute availability through email and text. So a lot of people look ahead to maybe next month or 2 months out, identify dates that are not currently booked through the OTA, and opposed to maybe over the course of the next 30 days having your pricing software like reduce those rates, try to fill those openings. You go out and use your direct booking audience that you've been developing to push those specific dates and properties in, let's say, a monthly email, and see if you can fill those out directly as opposed to trying to book them more and more last minute through an OTA at a lower and lower price. Within StayFi and just about any tool, there's typically two types of campaigns. One's going to be like an automated, sometimes called like a drip campaign or automation. That's where when a guest is meets certain criteria, you enroll them in a series of emails over a course of a period of time. And the other are one-off newsletters that you can send to all of your entire audience or to segments. So for instance, by market or property. I'd say automation is typically where we recommend people begin, because it's the lowest effort for the highest reward. So, for instance, you can set up an automation within StayFi where you will email every guest when they log into the Wi-Fi. Then you can set up subsequent emails sent, let's say, in 14 days, then 30 days, then 30 days, then 30 days, where you just advertise different value propositions about why they should come back and book direct or certain properties or reasons to return to your destination. And that way you can set up a series of emails one time that's going to be consistently sent to all guests. Because the most important thing about email marketing is that you have some level of consistency. We just find that if you don't email for a long period of time, like 6 months or a year, when you do restart marketing, a lot of people are going to unsubscribe or mark you as spam because they've forgotten who you are and why you have the right to market to them. So consistency is really the most important thing because that's going to build up brand awareness with that past guest so that when they are planning their next trip, you are top of mind and they remember, which is most important, to go back to your website and check your properties. And I'm sure they're also going to go to Airbnb and Vrbo. And so they can even see right there, hopefully, the proof point. If this is one of your value propositions, which it typically is, that booking direct will be a less expensive option versus the OTA. And then finally, once people's lists get to 500 contacts approximately, that's where we see people typically layer on an additional, maybe a monthly newsletter on top of the automation they set up, just because then you can stay consistently in folks' inbox so that they are ready to book with you direct when that next trip planning phase kind of comes up for them. Also, great ways, like I said before, to advertise those kind of last minute availability. That's really great if you're in a predominantly drive-to market where you could send an email out on a Monday about a weekend trip the next weekend and actually get people interested to do a last minute stay, which you can do for both kind of nights that went unbooked through an OTA or cancellations is another one. Or even if they canceled within the period, we don't get a refund, you can still send that email out and try to get an actual booking for those nights as well. I think SMS is the least used marketing tool within the vacation rental industry. And there's a lot of things that you can do here that are very high value. When someone has SMS marketing on their splash pages in StayFi, One thing we noticed that is that about 80% of guests to 90% will opt into email. Text marketing is lower. It's like 20 to 30%. So you can think of text marketing as a much more concentrated audience, but the texts that you do send are going to have a much higher engagement rate. So while email may have like a 1, 2% click-through rate, maybe like a 30, 40% open rate, just about everybody sees the text, and could be 10+% of people will actually click through the content. So typically smaller audience, but much higher rates of engagement. Again, we have some automations in StayFi, so you can trigger a text when someone logs to the Wi-Fi. We have this very cool rate and review feature where you can ask the guests to review you, and if they want to give you 5 stars, then we actually let them go and review you on Google or your own website. Google is a great one. If you have your Google business page highly rated, it also benefits your search engine optimization. And then when someone also Googles your brand, they'll see right on the right there your branding, and you have 100 5-star reviews. So really going to just up that authority so that when they go to your direct booking site, they trust you and are going to book directly with you. And then finally, you can send a message to all of your past bookers who have opted in. Again, this is really where last minute availability, you can get this out to as many people as possible. And that's where you can advertise a special deal or a new property, and you're going to get high conversion rates if you're doing anything high value through a text message. And then finally, here are just some generic or general guest marketing recommendations. I think one thing is, if you're going to go through the steps of building a compelling website, you just want to make sure that branding is consistent. So the way that you talk about yourself on the website, this may seem obvious. You want to talk about you the same way through your email. I think one thing that people sometimes struggle with is they don't know what to put in an email. So some things to easily do is, if you, let's say, do blog posts, you can include a blog post. If you have events in your destination, make a calendar of events and make sure you are marketing each of those events through email. Here's Mardi Gras. That's a pretty obvious one, but kind of get to know what are the top draws or reasons why people come to your destination. And those are always great reasons to put in your email. The last thing is, whatever your key value prop is for why to book direct over booking through an OTA, I would consistently make sure that is in every single email you send. Whether that's it will just always be less expensive to book direct, if that's they always get an additional amenity or free service or access to additional concierge services, whatever it is, make sure you are nailing that book direct value proposition in every email, because it may feel repetitive to you, but you have to remember, if you're sending a newsletter every month, the guests probably will only open 1 out of 3, so they may be only seeing your content, once or twice a quarter at the most. So it may seem like repetitive to you, but you know how many emails you get, and so really just make sure you're nailing that key value proposition over and over again.
Yeah, Arthur, I'm a StayFi user myself, and I found that a lot of times when we're building out our email campaigns, what we try to think about is how to provide value. And I think the better that you can lead with value in your emails and consistently think about, like, what is the guest on the other side, what are they going to appreciate getting in their inbox? And then having that direct booking link right beneath that. Don't lead with the direct booking link. That has, for us, we found much more success kind of building it out that way.
Yeah, make sure that the value, always lead with value, and that can be recommendation, event, and then of course that extra compelling value proposition, just to give people a sense of kind of like what is possible if you take direct booking seriously. We have people start with StayFi that are all in all parts of this journey. So that's from my CottageStays, which is in the upper left here, who started with StayFi already at 70-80% of their bookings direct. She'd operated in Canada for like 20+ years, has a very loyal audience. She actually collected enough emails pretty quickly just to not even need OTAs anymore and just drive all of her high traffic through their website. And then even she has played with, because this is in a very like seasonal destination where no one wants to go to Northern Ontario in the height of winter, and they may not even be, many of the properties aren't even open at that time of year, but she was able to kind of play with extending the shoulder season a little bit, just because she has this larger audience that may want to come back when other people typically are not looking to travel there. And then that's all the way down to an Anchor Point, which is a much smaller property management manager that was doing sub 10% direct bookings. And in a year, they went from 10 to 30% of all their bookings coming directly by doing Wi-Fi and email. And then they also were able to fill it more unbooked nights. So also raise their overall occupancy. And then we have even folks just one property. Typically the property is a little more interesting, but we have a lot of people that even have one property and find, hey, if I can just find those few people a year that want to come back and book directly, the investment in a website and in marketing is going to then compound, like Gil said, because as that loyal audience of repeat bookers grows, they're the folks that are going to come back book yearly. I even talked to somebody who said, she sees people come back even before she used StayFi. People who booked family reunion 5 years ago came back and booked another one this year, and they were on their email list. And it took 5 years of emailing once a month for them to come back and book this massive stay, in like a 12-bedroom property. So, staying in that inbox, you'd be surprised how many people come back. And then, of course, the window might be a long time, but those impacts is going to compound as that audience keeps growing.
Yeah, and that's kind of goes back to why you need to continue to nurture your leads over and over again, because 5 years is a long time, but if they've been hearing from you consistently, they're going to think about you the next time that they're thinking about the next reunion. On our side, we've actually seen some pretty good successes as well too. I think probably the most notable one is we've had someone that was on the OTAs direct booking platform there, and they decided that they wanted to tell a much better story. They wanted to be able to customize their site much more, add more branding in there, and they saw this is OC Venture. They saw a 75% lift in conversion there, and this was within 6 weeks. Within 6 weeks, we didn't have enough time to really optimize for SEO. So what we're really gearing towards here is really being able to tell a much better story and convert visitors at a much higher rate there. We've even had really, really small operators, kind of like Arthur, what you mentioned. They have one property. Actually, this one, they had just launched. They launched both direct and on OTAs at the same time, but they were documenting their entire journey of their build out. And they were able to build a following on social to, I think it was like 1,500 followers on their Instagram. And when they opened their doors, they saw a 40% direct booking rate from the very beginning. So they saw a lot of successes coming from even just a very small operator starting with the first property there. And we also had some other successes where folks get more than just the booking themselves. We've seen folks that have reduced their ad spend because they're able to track where their ads are coming, or what marketing tactics is being most effective to them, and really focusing on those areas and getting rid of or optimizing some of their marketing spend in other areas. So for instance, you may find that if influencers are not driving converting bookings, you may decide not to opt in for influencers moving forward, or vice versa. If you find that your marketing tactics through emails is more effective, that allows you to know, okay, I should be spending more time on writing out my newsletters on a monthly basis because I'm actually getting a lot of returns coming from this marketing channel there. So there's
And
a lot
that's
of
definitely, yeah, just to mention, that's one of my big beefs with the PMS websites is I don't think any of them have Google Analytics e-commerce tracking.
Yep.
So while they all say they have Google Analytics integrated, you can't actually track source of traffic and tie it to a booking, which is a huge missing hole in the ability to use those websites effectively.
Yeah, and some of them don't even have Google Analytics altogether. I think they're starting to one by one come around to it. We ended up actually integrating e-commerce tracking, so we know from a property by property basis which ones are converting there. So you can be running promotions, you can be running socials, and you can actually see which one of your properties are being really converting more effectively. So for instance, if you're highlighting certain properties in your socials and your emails, you can know whether or not that email that you sent out is actually converting that specific property, or is it cross-pollinating to one of your other properties as well too. So you can have a much better idea of really your overall marketing operations, and be a better marketer.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting here is probably a lot of people are just leaving bookings on the table just because if they were to switch to a better converting website, even with the existing traffic, they would be getting, some percentage more bookings already without even having to go above and beyond to drive more traffic to that site, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, you should be definitely thinking about the OTAs as basically a marketing channel for you to get more leads in there.
Sweet. Gil, do you want to take a look and see? I know we covered a lot of material. Well, first, I guess we'll just kind of do thanks everybody, and then we'll do the questions. But we have some different offers for folks if they're interested in Crafted Stays and or StayFi. So I'll just cover StayFi first, which is if you go to stayfi.com and use code Crafted during sign up, you will get 50% off the first 3 months of the service. That includes both the Wi-Fi marketing service and the email marketing service. So if you just wanted to start with an email marketing tool built for short-term rentals, you can just use that and then decide if you want to add Wi-Fi to collect even more data. And it's a totally self-service product, but of course, if you want to book a demo or learn more, that's also an option on our website as well.
Yeah. And on our side, we do have a promotion for StayFi users or folks on the webinar today. If you visit the website, craftedstays.co/a/StayFi, that's a unique link. You can only get this through that link, but it's $35 off the first 12 months. So you can basically get a direct booking site for as little as $55 for up to 2 properties.
Yeah, so maybe just so everyone knows, kind of what is the range of prices to use Crafted Stays to launch a fantastic website?
Yeah, we are all subscription based. So typically it's $59 right now. We have a promotion for kind of the general audience, but for this audience here is $55 for the first 12 months. It includes 2 properties. And then if you have more than 2 properties, it's $8 for each additional property. For our more established, more institutional, if you have more than 20 properties, you're welcome to email us. And then we can put packages together on that. And we can talk about also custom templates as well too.
And it's awesome because you're not paying folks to like build you your first website because it's all these fantastic templates. So you can really customize it yourself and get the look and feel that you're looking for. And I feel like that's what appeals to a lot of operators today is having the power to kind of build it themselves in an easy to use tool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, we'll leave this up here in case people want to write these URLs down. But do you want to go and see kind of any questions that would be good to cover?
Yeah. Yeah. The quick question, is this recorded? Yes. Arthur, you guys will send the recording for this afterwards. There's a question on the stands for between the OTAs and the terms of service for StayFi. I don't know, Arthur, you want to take that one?
Yeah. So, I mean, so the key thing with that is you have to be very careful and not advertise or ask guests to book obviously directly through an OTA. So kind of like once the guest has had interest in you or the booker, that booking needs to be completed through the OTA, right? We can't take that lead and then have them circumnavigate the OTA to come to your own website. So that's definitely what I would highly recommend. So I would view the OTAs again as a lead source for that first booking. And then, of course, once they're in your property, the guest is going to be affirmatively opting in to being marketed to by you. So it's a choice that the guest is making to hear from you in the future. And of course, they do not have to opt in to do that. They can, uncheck those boxes, and then you do not have the ability to market to them, right? So we're just very careful that this is something that the guest is asking of you, that you are going to go ahead and let them know about your marketing and your services in the future. And we're not, definitely do not recommend anybody to try to take existing bookings coming from an OTA and try to change them into direct bookings, right? That's definitely a big no-no.
Yeah. Same thing on our side. We have the same kind of feeling there. Get their first booking on the OTAs if needed, but then really make sure that you give them a really good experience and really have the ability to capture their emails so that you can remarket them for future. But don't try to get greedy and take that first booking off the OTAs. There's a question for me: how do you integrate into Hospitable widgets? And if we use direct premium, or they can use their own payment options, We actually support both. We're actually in the process of getting rid of the hospitable widgets, so that we have a very consistent styling all the way through. But either way, we support both Direct Premium and Direct Basic as well too. So Direct Basic, you're connecting your own Stripe accounts and you're the merchant of record, where Direct Premium, hospitable is the merchant of record and they're handling the payments for you. And we support kind of both of them there.
And what I love about that premium product is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not just payments. They also bundle or help you do, I think, Superhog or some other options when it comes to like protecting yourself when you're doing direct booking. So I find that's like a great starting option of like, I don't want to have to, I kind of want to understand how to protect my home and liability and guest damage waivers and all those things, right?
Yes, yes. So yeah, AutoHost and Superhog are both integrated into Direct Premium. It's definitely worthwhile to do.
Yeah.
Question from Alexander: what portion of the clientele is midterm, and why they choose your product? For us, most of our folks, and maybe just because we're in the short-term rental space more than we are the midterm rental space, but most of our customers are short-term rentals. We have a few that are short-term rental and midterm rentals on our platform, but our sphere of people that we surround ourselves with is more on the short-term rental side.
Yeah, so we have very few, almost no midterm rental companies. The only exception is we have some customers that run certain properties short term for part of the year, and then they have like a 6-month renter the rest of the year. What's cool about StayFi is our service is charged on a monthly basis, but by property you can turn it on or off. So we do have customers, like I talked even about cottage stays earlier, where she's not even renting for part of the year. You can actually turn off StayFi Wi-Fi in those properties if you are not actively using it. And that is true for folks that they have a 6-month renter, and then obviously they don't need to have StayFi operating for those 6 months.
Yeah, awesome. There's a question from Alicia about reviews on Crafted Stays and whether or not we support Revios and Elfsight. Yes, we do support both of them as an embed. But we also have a native reviews on our system where we ask our host to put their top 5 reviews per property. And the reason why we do it that way is we will actually surface the reviews on the bottom of your page where there's a direct link back to the booking page there. So when you do it that way, it's a very seamless experience for the guests. They're able to see the review, see a picture of the property, and click directly into it. We found that actually converts better. We are thinking about actually partnering up with the PMS to ingest or synchronize all the reviews coming from the PMS. That's probably a mid-year next year goal for us.
And can you collect new reviews on the Crafted Stays website, or for now it's just surfacing reviews from other sources?
Just surfacing for now, yeah. Let's see. I think Jennifer had a few. Once the site is live, what are the marketing techniques to go from 10 to 50% direct bookings, SEO, email marketing? Can you elaborate?
Oh yeah, that's I'd say there's a few things. One is certain tactics and strategies take longer to be effective, the main one being SEO. So to build authority in your destination is going to depend on how much competition there is. That's probably the biggest one, right? So do you have 8 other large property managers that have invested in websites and you're competing with? Obviously going to be much more challenging than if you are in a smaller destination where most other properties are managed by like hosts that don't have their own website and are only listing on OTAs, because then you're just competing with OTAs. I find that in many of the destinations where there are large property managers, they typically outrank OTAs organically, just because I think Google kind of likes ranking those kind of like large single market folks over like a Google or a Vrbo, which obviously they want, or Expedia, because they want to have them advertise. I think the fastest way to start, like I said before, is working with your existing audience of guests. I think beyond that, there are some techniques like billboarding, which can help accelerate this process. So that's just making sure that your OTA listings, in terms of photos, names of properties, match those on the website, because many guests are getting savvy to the idea that you can find a website and book directly for less. So a lot of people will Google the name of the property and see if there's a direct booking website. And that's just where you need to have a well-designed website where then the direct booking website will surface in the first few options there when you are Googling the name. And that's another area where I see people can kind of jumpstart that process. And that's important just because you're not at that point intercepting someone who's starting the booking process through an OTA. They're just doing their own research and finding you organically that way.
Yeah, it also depends on the type of stay. If you have something that's very unique, another like a unique stay, social media influencers, that's a very good tactic to use in those types of stays. If you're working with more business travelers, LinkedIn ads are effective. But I would say I would agree with Arthur that the lowest hanging fruit for folks getting into direct bookings, if you already have a steady stream of bookings and folks visiting your property, building up that email list is one of the most effective ways to really kickstart your marketing.
Yeah, social media, like you mentioned, is a big one, but I'd say that's the one where you see the biggest divergence of people that can execute and do an amazing job where they can literally book their property for a year just from being a social media influencer and understanding how to market and build a brand and trust with folks. And again, if you have a unique or very interesting property that's more achievable, that's a skill set that I think it's it's pretty rare for people to be amazing at, but if you have those abilities, it can be one of the best ROI channels.
Yeah. And Jennifer, we have a podcast. So CraftedStays has a podcast called Direct Booking Simplified. Take a look at that. Each week we bring on another host that has done really well in direct bookings and they share different tactics. So like in our space, like Ben Wolf is a really good person from the unique stays perspective, where he has 80% direct bookings, and he's built that over time through social media. So he talks about some of his tactics there. It's not widely applicable to everybody, but you really have to think about who's staying at your property, where are they looking at, where are they influenced by, and use that as a way to drive your marketing strategy.
And we actually just did a webinar. So if you go to the StayFi YouTube channel, we did one last week with Tyann Marsink of Branson Family Retreats. And, she has, I would say, pretty unique properties for her area in terms of like size, but they're not, the kind of like insane like tree house or like barn reno that's gonna really pop on social. So that's ones where she's had a lot of success through traditional email marketing, other things like that, and then just building that brand awareness with guests over years. And she gets 60, 70 plus percent of her bookings direct. She also talks a lot in that presentation about how she uh, approaches pricing strategy between OTAs and her own website, and the differences between Airbnb, Vrbo, and her own site. How she subtly kind of influences billboarding that way as well to drive awareness of her direct booking website. She has kind of like her own very basic loyalty program she's developed that's super simple to replicate, that also helps drive awareness around direct booking. So I definitely recommend checking that out because she kind of gives a whole hour-long seminar about how she's gotten to, 70 plus percent direct booking over the course of the last few years.
Yeah, yeah. That's really mammoth for a market like Branson as well too, which I'm in as well. And that's amazing success that she's been able to get to. And we have two more questions left. Another one from Jennifer, for Know Your Host concept. We have 4 rentals, but have branding that is elevated and professional. Seems like we would have better success with Meet Your Host type of element. I'm guessing that's probably geared towards me, but yes, we do allow folks to introduce themselves on our homepage, and I recommend that, especially if your stays are very personable. If you're speaking on behalf of yourself, a lot of times when you're doing guest messaging, and you're being a lot more personable, I would definitely use that as basically one of your value props there, and leverage that.
And one other thing I would recommend that you may want to do in email marketing is that instead of using one of our like highly designed templates, you can actually write a marketing email in a first person voice where it's like, hi, first name, thanks for staying with us. I'm Jennifer, I run the blah, blah, blah cabin or whatever it is. And actually, those types of marketing messages that appear as if you just spontaneously wrote this, let's say from your Gmail, have much higher open rates and response rates, especially with people just writing you back. because most email recipients will use Gmail, and most people with a personal Gmail will have a primary folder and then a promotions kind of like section of Gmail. Emails typically are going into promotions because they have photos or very promotional language in them. That's kind of how Google sorts them. By writing a plain text email written from the first person, it's much more likely to go into the main primary inbox and have a much higher open rate. And it's also easier to build and write. So there's like a lot of advantages to it. So if you have that persona, don't be afraid to extend that into the post-day marketing and actually shy away from the more branded templates that a lot of people are using with images and intersperse some first person emails where you are just soliciting them to let you know if they have any plans for a trip in the future, and they will often reply to you directly.
Very nice. Very nice. Last question for you, Arthur, from Alicia. Do you have a marketing pathway template once you capture their email?
Yeah, so we actually launched this in the last few months. In the, I'd say, kind of main section of our email tool, we have what we call like one-click campaigns. So that is something like a welcome email, anniversary email. We're about to launch post-departure email, promotional email newsletter, where essentially we build the entire template for you with all the buttons, and you just have to put in the images and customize the text. So we've kind of made it much easier to send emails, and we've done 90% of the work for you, and you just have to customize those last few bits. So it's really, email marketing for vacation rentals in the fullest sense. So I definitely would check that out because that will just make sending and setting up automations and one-off emails a lot faster and easier. And of course, similar to you, Gail, we kind of take the best practices we've seen from all of our customers, and then we condense those down into some templates that we know are going to convert into clicks and then ultimately bookings.
Awesome. All right. I think that was the last question.
Awesome. Well, those are such fantastic questions. So thanks everyone for attending. Like I said before, check out stayfi.com, go to craftedstays.co/a/stayfi if you want that extra discount. And then this will be available to everybody. We will send it as a link if you registered. And then it will also be available on the StayFi YouTube channel, where you can find not only this webinar, but a webinar that we do with Tyann and all sorts of other folks if you want to learn more about direct booking, as we cover all sorts of different topics, email, text marketing, websites like here, as well as like upsell webinars, AI tools, lots of interesting content with different folks to learn more about things that may help your business. Awesome. Thanks again, Gil. And thanks everyone for joining. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their week and a great Thanksgiving next week if you're here in the US.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Thanks, guys.